Take a deep breath right now. Hold it. Most people can hold their breath for about 60 seconds before their body starts panicking. Trained free divers, people who spend years practicing, can push that to 4 or 5 minutes. World record holders can go beyond 10 minutes, but they are rare exceptions who have spent their entire lives training for that one thing. Now imagine a child, 8 or 9 years old, diving off a wooden boat into the ocean, going down 13 meters without any equipment, picking up a sea cucumber from the ocean floor and coming back up, casually, like it is just a normal part of the day. Because for them it is. The Bajau people of Southeast Asia do not hold their breath. They just live underwater. And here's the part that will really get you. Science has confirmed that their bodies are physically different from yours and mine. Not because of training, not because of practice, because of thousands of years of living this way, their DNA has actually changed. This is the story of the Bajau, the sea people, the people who chose the ocean over the land, and whose bodies quietly rewrote themselves to make that choice possible. The Bajau are a group of indigenous maritime people spread across a wide stretch of Southeast Asia, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia primarily, with smaller communities in other parts of the region. Their population is estimated at somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million people, though exact numbers are hard to confirm because many Bajau communities have historically lived outside the reach of any government census. The reason for that is simple. For most of their history, the Bajau did not live on land at all. They lived on boats. They were born on boats, grew up on boats, got married on boats, had children on boats, and died on boats. The sea was not something they visited. It was their home, their road, their food source, and their world. They moved constantly. Following fish migrations, following seasons, following opportunity. They had no fixed address because they did not believe in fixed addresses. The ocean did not have borders. Why should they? Their boats, called lepa-lepa, were everything. Small, narrow, built from wood, with a covered sleeping area and a cooking area. A family of 5 or 6 would live on one of these boats for years at a time, docking occasionally at stilted villages built over the water when they needed to trade or rest, but always returning to the sea. Children learned to swim before they learned to walk. Literally, parents would lower babies into the water from an early age, letting them get comfortable with the ocean before they were even steady on their feet on land. By the time a Bajau child was a toddler, they were already at home in the water in a way that most adults never achieve in their entire lives. But swimming is just the beginning of it. The Bajau are free divers. This means they dive on a single breath. No oxygen tanks, no diving equipment, nothing but their own lungs and their own bodies. They have been doing this for generations to catch fish, to collect sea cucumbers, to harvest pearls, to gather anything the ocean floor offers that can be eaten or traded. Experienced Bajau divers can go down to depths of 60 meters or more on a single breath. They can stay underwater for up to 5 minutes at a time. They do this repeatedly throughout the day. Diving, surfacing, breathing, diving again, for hours. To put that in perspective, 60 meters is about the height of a 20-story building. You would be diving down the equivalent of a skyscraper on one breath, working on the ocean floor and swimming back up, and then doing it again 15 minutes later. They use simple tools: wooden goggles carved by hand, weights to help them sink faster, basic spears for fishing. Some older Bajau divers deliberately rupture their own eardrums when they are young to avoid the pain that comes from the water pressure at depth. They go partially deaf as a result. They consider it a worthwhile trade. Think about that. Willingly going partially deaf to be a better diver. That is how central the ocean is to who they are. For a long time, outsiders assumed that the Bajau's extraordinary diving ability was simply a matter of practice and training. Grow up diving every day and of course you get good at it. But in 2018, a team of scientists published research that changed that assumption completely. Researchers from the University of Copenhagen spent time with Bajau communities in Indonesia, taking measurements and collecting DNA samples. They also studied a neighboring group, the Saluan people, who live in the same region but are land-based farmers rather than sea nomads. This gave them a comparison group with similar genetics but a completely different lifestyle. What they found was remarkable. The Bajau had spleens that were on average 50% larger than the Saluan people. 50%. That is not a small difference. That is a completely different organ size. Why does spleen size matter for diving? Here is the science explained simply. When you dive underwater, your body goes into what is called the dive reflex, a set of automatic physical responses designed to help you survive with less oxygen. Your heart rate slows. Blood is redirected away from your limbs and towards your vital organs. And your spleen contracts, squeezing out a reserve of oxygen-rich red blood cells into your bloodstream like an emergency oxygen tank. A bigger spleen means more red blood cells. More red blood cells means more oxygen stored. More oxygen stored means you can stay underwater longer. The Bajau did not develop bigger spleens because they trained hard. They developed bigger spleens because of a genetic mutation, a specific change in a gene called PDE10A, that made their spleens grow larger. This mutation is far more common in Bajau people than in the neighboring populations who do not dive. In other words, thousands of years of living as sea nomads actually changed the Bajau's DNA. Their bodies adapted at a genetic level to the life they were living. This is human evolution happening in real time, visible in a living population, confirmed by modern science. The researchers also found other genetic differences related to how the Bajau body handles oxygen deprivation and how their thyroid functions, changes that all point in the same direction. These are people whose biology has been quietly shaped by the sea. But the Bajau are not just a scientific curiosity. They are a people with a rich culture, a deep spiritual life, and a way of understanding the world that is completely their own. Their spiritual beliefs are centered on the sea. They believe the ocean is alive, not metaphorically but literally. Spirits live in the water, in the coral, in the fish. Before a dive, prayers are offered. After a large catch, gratitude is expressed. The relationship between the Bajau and the ocean is not one of exploitation. It is one of conversation. You take what you need. You give respect in return. You do not take more than the sea can give back. This is not a romantic idea invented by outsiders looking for an ecological story. It is a practical philosophy developed by people who depend entirely on the ocean's health for their survival. A reef that is destroyed does not feed you next season. A fishing ground that is emptied does not come back quickly. The Bajau understood sustainable fishing long before the word sustainable became a buzzword in international environmental conferences. Their music and oral traditions are tied to the water. Their sense of time is shaped by tides and currents and fish migrations rather than clocks and calendars. Their sense of direction on the open ocean, navigating by stars, by wave patterns, by the color and temperature of the water, is a form of knowledge so precise that it has been compared to reading a map, except the map exists only in their heads, built from a lifetime of observation. Children do not just learn to dive. They learn to read the ocean, to know when a storm is coming by the way the waves move, to know where fish are gathering by the behavior of birds overhead, to know which reefs are healthy and which are struggling. This knowledge is not written down anywhere. It is passed from parent to child, generation to generation, through living and doing. But the world the Bajau were born into is changing fast. And not in ways that are kind to people who live on the water. Governments across Southeast Asia have spent decades pressuring Bajau communities to settle on land. Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines have all run programs, sometimes through incentives, sometimes through force, to bring the Bajau ashore, into permanent houses, into the systems of registration and taxation and schooling that governments need people to participate in. The logic from the government side is not entirely wrong. Land-based children have easier access to schools and hospitals. Settled communities are easier to count, to serve, to include in national development plans. These are real benefits, but the cost is enormous. When a Bajau family moves onto land, something breaks. Children who grew up on boats do not know how to live on land in the same way their parents do not know how to live on land. The skills, the knowledge, the spiritual connection to the ocean, all of it becomes harder to maintain when you are living in a house on a street instead of on a boat above a reef. Many settled Bajau communities are among the poorest in their respective countries. Cut off from the ocean that sustained them, without the land-based skills that other communities developed over generations, they are caught between two worlds and fully at home in neither. The ocean itself is also changing. Coral reefs across Southeast Asia, The ecosystems that the Bajau depend on for food are dying. Climate change is warming the water and bleaching the coral. Illegal fishing by large commercial operations is emptying the areas the Bajau have fished for centuries. Pollution is spreading. The fish are fewer. The dives are longer for smaller catches. A Bajau elder who dived as a young person in the 1970s and dives now will tell you that the ocean they knew is gone. The reefs were different. The fish were everywhere. The water was clearer. What exists now is a shadow of what was there before. And it is getting worse every decade. Here is what is at stake beyond the Bajau themselves. The Bajau carry knowledge that exists nowhere else on Earth. Their understanding of ocean ecosystems, built over thousands of years of direct observation and dependence, is the kind of knowledge that marine scientists spend entire careers trying to reconstruct from data. The Bajau already have it. In their heads, in their practices, in the way they fish and move and read the sea. When a Bajau elder dies without passing that knowledge on, because their children settled on land, because the community was dispersed, because the conditions that made that knowledge useful no longer exist, that knowledge disappears. Not into a book, not into a database. Just gone. We are losing libraries. Not the kind made of paper and shelves, but the kind made of human memory and lived experience. And unlike paper libraries, these cannot be rebuilt once they are gone. There is a moment that researchers who have spent time with the Bajau often describe. You are on a boat, somewhere in the Coral Triangle, the sun high overhead, the water so clear you can see the reef 30 meters below. And a Bajau diver slides off the side of the boat and goes down. No tank, no suit, just a person and the water. And they stay down, and they stay down, long past the point where you would have surfaced gasping. Long past the point where your body would have forced you up. They move through the water below you like they belong there. 'Cause they do. The Bajau did not conquer the ocean. They did not master it or dominate it. They joined it. Slowly, over thousands of years, they made themselves part of it. And it made itself part of them, written into their DNA, shaping their spleens, slowing their hearts, letting them breathe in a world that should be impossible for human lungs. That is not a metaphor. That is biology. That is evolution. That is what happens when a people commit so completely to a way of life that their bodies eventually say yes. The Bajau are still out there. Some still on their boats. Some on the shores looking out at the water. Some diving still, in seas that are emptier than they used to be. Over reefs that are quieter than they should be. They are the most aquatic humans on Earth. And the ocean they were built for is disappearing beneath them. That is the story of the Bajau. And it belongs to all of us now.